I'm going to go through some cables. I've been having a clear out and I found loads of old cables which I've made mistakes on buying, and I want to go through why I made the mistakes and what I can do to help especially beginners with cables, and explain about instrument cables, jack cables and connectors, and just my experience with the whole cable thing, because it's confusing and expensive. I'm Alex Biggs, this is Drum Bass Studios. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the one that always confused me the most, was the instrument cable. So an instrument cable is designed to come out of perhaps a bass guitar or electric guitar into pedal boards or into an amp, and it's designed to be shielded so that it doesn't pick up any interference. It's also quite a thin cable inside because the output of a guitar or bass guitar is so small, you need a special cable to be able to transmit that signal, and this is why you have an instrument cable. If you're not sure you've got it, say if you found one without an L-shaped end, you can look actually on the cable and it will say instrument, or it will say something along those lines, so you'll know which one it is. It looks identical to your jack cable, but this is designed for either speakers or just other devices like plugging into a keyboard perhaps. So it's not designed for guitars, and apparently you can damage your amps if you use the wrong cable, so just do be a bit careful. The other thing it does is have really bad interference, and you'll get buzzing and humming and all sorts. So that's basically the instrument cable and the jack cable. Now at the end of these are called 1/4" jack, or they could be called, the modern term is 6.35mm connectors, as opposed to your headphone jacks, which are normally mini jack or 3.5mm connectors. The other thing I would say, what I've experienced with cables, is that I'd wished I'd spent more money on them. So all the cables, when I first started doing all this recording, I used to just buy cables without thinking, and they've just not worked for me. For example, this cable that I found has just the ends bent. They're just not made as well. So unfortunately, when you're buying cables, you do have to spend a bit of money, which is really difficult when you see a cable that's £4 or $4 and then one that's 18 or 16, and it's just a hard reach to get that cable. But unfortunately, my recommendation is that you do. Now, you see a lot of videos by people saying that there's no difference with cheap cables, and they do a thing of looking at it in a computer. But to be honest with you, I'll show you a few examples. So you can see that this one's already bent. Now, what I've got here is an adapter I bought years ago, and it's for the mini jack. It goes in. Now, when I put this in, it slops right all the way in and then clicks. This adapter is made by a proper company. I don't know if it was these headphones or another quite expensive headphones, and that it came with this adapter. Now when I put this in, straight away it stops just there. There's a click, a little click, another click, and then it clicks in, and it just feels solid. It feels like a really good connection. And this is why I think with cheaper cables, it's not necessarily the copper wire or whatever wire's inside, because that will transmit the signal fine. It's just the ends. And again, my philosophy on it is that when I buy an instrument cable, I want to buy a named brand. Fender was quite reasonably priced, and the reason I went for the Fender is because they make, like, this bass amp, combo amp here is really good. It's Fender. They make Fender guitars. They're not going to produce a rubbish cable that crackles and just gives a bad quality, because it will make their instrument or their speaker or amp sound rubbish. So I know that if I buy a named brand, it's going to be recommended, and I always buy from a music shop. So when you're buying your cables, try and get them from a music shop, because they source professional retailers that stock professional cables. Other connectors that you're going to see, so you've got your jack cable, your instrument cable, and you've got what's called XLR. Now XLR is probably the most common in studios. It's sometimes called a Canon connector, it used to be. It's also called a microphone cable, and all it is basically a balanced cable. This cable's 15 meters long, and that's absolutely fine because it's balanced. What it means is that it's got 3 cables, I think, inside it as well as shielding, and when the signal runs, the other cable or one of the other cables does a phase reverse, I believe, and it stops any buzzing or hums. So that's why it's good to have a balanced cable, because balanced means you're not going to get any interference. If we look at the end, you can see that this is not balanced because it's called a TR cable. Although they're called jacks, think of them as TR and TRS. TR means tip ring. A TRS cable has tip ring sleeve. Okay, and that just means it's got 2 channels. So you could think of it like these headphones. These have got 2 channels, your left and right, and here at the end is a TRS cable because it's got tip ring sleeve. So it means it can send 2 signals, which you'll need obviously for headphones. So the TR cables are just, think of it as mono or 1 channel. Now, why would you use different ones? Well, the TR cables are slightly cheaper. I don't think they're much difference, but they are a little bit cheaper. So ideally you could use this in the back of perhaps a keyboard into the desk, but I always use TRS now because when I bought the SSL Big 6, the preamp's quite sensitive, quite obviously good quality, and they recommend you use TRS cables because they don't want any sort of sound going into the preamp apart from what you're recording or what device is attached. And again, it doesn't make much difference at all. The only difference would be is just those instrument cables on guitars that you've got to watch. The male and female thing. So what we have here is a female end because it's got the holes, and a male end because it's got the prongs. And if you ever want to extend the XLR, you can just put them together and then you can have runs. And again, because it's balanced, these go for 100 feet or 30-40 meters, perhaps longer, without too much issues. These are the main cables you'll see XLRs in studios. And again, I always try and get the Neutrik ends because I know that Neutrik are a quality end, and they're like almost like a standard end of a cable. So I'll try and buy a cable and I'll make sure it's got Neutrik ends. But again, that's just me, that's my opinion. I've had problems with other cheaper cables, as I said before. I think that's mainly the connectors. So again, all you got to think is that your TRS have got the 2 black bands. Sometimes you'll see 3, and they used to be for video, if you're sending a video signal, or these days they've got another channel so that you can all listen your headphones and speak on your phone. Some of those in-ear ones have that, just so that you know what that is. So any comments, just stick in the bottom if you've got any questions about cables. I've just covered the basics. As I say, these are the issues I had when I was starting out, as I was buying cheap cables and it was just causing me problems later on. So always buy expensive, and it saves upgrading or buying again. Don't forget to subscribe, like, hit the bell icon. I'll be doing some more videos. If you find it useful, that'd be great, and I shall see you next time. I'm Alex, this is Drum Bass Studios. Take care.